Hey everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Bozmos2, where we are playing Chaco. It's turn 32. I'm a little under the weather. Just got back from a little mini vacation. Very exhausted, so this is probably going to be a little low energy. I probably should doing this at a later date, but I don't want to get behind. I'd rather just power through, so bear with me. Let's jump into things. Okay, so right off the bat we have Messenger from End. Lol, I think this was the most unprepared I will ever be, and I'm talking for a game in general. Even look at your units very close to know that they have Spirit Sight or that you have Astral Dude. To kind of just played my turns and didn't think much or at all. I feel you. I'm actually I have done probably a little bit more prep, but I'm very unprepared for this battle. I think I'm honestly kind of unprepared for this game in general. Like, I'm doing my best. I just didn't want to pass up the opportunity to do such a big game. But I definitely don't feel like I was prepared. Like a build and a concept, but I'm still having fun with it. So, anyways, jumping into the rest of stuff, we've completed Conjuration 3. Cool, that's pretty useful for us. We have site searched in Vanguard, found nothing. That's alright. Got a couple of proclamations and Dada. Okay. Random prophets. Yomi Yako Ano. I don't know if that is a reference. Krieg Fanboy number 3. Nice. Sticking with it. Gotcha. And we've got a bunch of battles in no particular... Well, we've got that battle at Smacia is kind of like the biggest thing. We'll do that last as it is. So we're just going to go watch through these. We got a battle at Assad where we are attacking into some Undead. This shouldn't be any big deal. We Blessing, Prayer of Earth, Iron Skin, Emperor Armor, Personal Regen, 32 Protection, 20 Regeneration. Should be just fine. Mac. 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 I did want to check this, because this was actually one of the first times that we had a Wuya fighting. So he has 25 attack on his Firebrand, 22 on his Stonebird. I want to see if he actually repelled anything. Theoretically, it's possible, but it's very unlikely because of the incredibly high morale. Repel. Yeah, morale negated repel, morale negated repel. Actually got pretty close here with a 54. So this is something to note. Even, and that is important, right? If morale negates the repel, they still take damage from it, right? Like, basically, like, they just don't care. They're throwing themselves on the spear anyways, right? That kind of concept. So, you know, like, there is that, but it's less of a valued defensive statistic at that point. 32, 36, 33, 37, 41, 29, 29, 20. That's really bad roll. 30, 39, 36, 29. Pretty average, or pretty, you know, pretty decent rolls. So it doesn't look like we got lucky on any of these or rolled overly high on any of them. That 51's probably going to be the closest. It just goes to show that you can roll high enough to beat Undead, especially if you're stacking. Like, keep in mind, we could be stacking our repel rolls higher and higher, basically higher and higher attack value. So the more we defeat their defense by, the better our starting repel roll check versus morale. So you can, in theory, kind of get it up to the point to where it's capable of beating Undead, but it's going to be very inconsistent unless you got a super attacker. But there are some... we got so close here. 58 versus 6, or yeah, 58 versus 62. Pretty close. Close. So yeah, there is the option. It is possible. It's just very unlikely. Still damaging people with the repel is still useful. Regardless, that fuck, I got a really bad headache. That Wuya is able to chop through those long dead without any. We attack into Walden. Okay, we've got another Wuya doing some stuff here. Prayer of Earth, armor, shield. Hope. Not bad. Pretty good. We actually want to change his stuff up a little bit. I forgot he was still out in the field. We witness a battle between Ermor and Finiscandia. Big ol' army from Ermor. Very little amount of PP from Finiscandia. This should be basically... Ow, my head is just like pulsing. Next battle, we have a battle where we get attacked in Ashington. You might remember Ashington is the port. We were actually moving off of Ashington. And this was a bad play on my part. I don't know why I decided to do this. This was me kind of like ignoring the way movement works. Just because I was being a dumbass, honestly. So there was no reason for... I tried to move into the province that an enemy army was in. And there was no reason for me to do that if the assumption is, and I think it was a very simple assumption, that that enemy army was going to try to come after me, right? Because that means the bigger army typically gets to move first, right? Like they move into a province. Like if you're two people trying to go, right? You'll be in the one with the bigger army because they're moving. So if we were both going the same direction, they were always gonna attack me in Ashington, which I don't think is what I wanted, right? That was against the original plan. And it's against the original plan because we've got a whole bunch of sages here. And we're basically just like a turn or two too late for what we're trying to accomplish here. So they start soul slaying. This guy only has 17 magic resistance, right? With the right setup, he could absolutely withstand the soul slays, burn the mages out, and then fend off these guys, because again, these guys, soldier priests from End, aren't probably going to be able to hack through a kitted out Wuya. So that's important, but we're just not quite there yet, unfortunately. So we got that, and then we attack in Finica with our god. Iron skin, personal origin, foreskin. Is that actually what I have set up? Strange. Yeah, so he's going to be able to very easily just cut through all of these guys. Finally took a little point of damage, and in taking that point of damage is now Berserk. So he now has 40 protection. Jesus. Oh my goodness. 40 protections. Really high. Alright, that's pretty good. Alright. So Great Bear kills 30 there. Then we have Raptors raiding in Eprisia. And this is kind of a mistake on my part too, of letting the leader there just kind of do what he wants. We get a wooden warriors out here, which is kind of interesting. I think actually he might have been blood hunting in this location with this bitch mother. That's kind of cool. But we very quickly kill the... It's flying units, so we very quickly kill the two leaders, and then that's that. lose a couple of additional people on the back end. But we actually let our guy kind of like walk forward, which if there had been other people that were charging at him, he definitely would have gotten attacked and died. So that is not something that we wanted. And then we have a battle in Smacia, so let's watch this. Alright, we know going into the list that we're going to lose. It's just a matter of how much do we do. We've got a whole lot of Gog Reavers up. We've got a whole lot of Abbot Sages and Maguses, a whole bunch of Soldier Priests. And we've got our little force. Here's the thing. I fucked this up, and I knew I fucked this up. I knew I fucked this up last turn, but I didn't change it. I forgot to fix it. And that is these heavy infantry and these Chacoan elite warriors are still on hold. The heavy infantry are on hold and attack. The Chacoan elites are on hold and fire. And they shouldn't be. They should be on the heavy infantry, at least, should be on attack. And the Chacoan elites probably should be on attack as well. Because even if they get a little ways out, right, they're still going to get bogged down going through here. And it's going to create more of a choke point, right? And we do not do that here in this fight, because the Gog Reavers kind of rush in, and then by the time we deal with the first wave of Gog Reavers, he's just got in soldiers and Gog Reavers all over the place. So it's at this point where we should have had a plug here, and it wouldn't have lasted for very long, mind you, because they would have chopped through our Chacoan elite warriors relatively quickly, no doubt at all. But as it is, they kind of just blitz through everything, and they get back into our Star Priests, and our Star Priests don't really have much time to do much of anything. Ultimately, our Wuya gets he gets paralyzed. But amusingly, after he gets paralyzed, he basically can't be hurt by the units around him. It's just a matter of getting, I think, Mind Burned or Soul Slayed. I think eventually he gets Soul Slayed. Yeah, eventually he gets Soul Slayed. So, again, it goes back to that scenario of, he had 21 because he had a lodestone, I think. So he had a little bit more magic resistance, but if he had not, or if he had more magic resistance than that, he could have potentially, you can see these Abbot Sages, right? They're already reaching close to 200 fatigue. Once they hit 200 fatigue, then every spell cast by these Maguses is going to hurt them. And he could absolutely, he doesn't have regeneration in them, and even if he did have regeneration in them, they don't really have enough HP to survive for too long while being, you know, the repeat casted with. Basically, if I can get my guys to be just a little bit more resilient against magic, which we absolutely can, then we absolutely could get him to start burning himself out on these communions. So there's that. That's a very interesting side of the. So let's watch, or let's see how much we actually did there. So we killed 30. That probably, so I made that the figure of, you know, I want to kill like 50. We probably actually could have done 50 if we had properly handled our heavy infantries and elite warriors, right? There was no way we were going to win that, but there was the chance, like if we had plugged that gap, we could have allowed our Star Priests more time to mind burn people, and that could have actually resulted in a few more kills. Like I said, kind of probably 50-ish is probably that scenario of about the best we were. A pretty crushing defeat, but we knew this was going to be a pretty crushing defeat going in. We knew, I mean, I said it was probably a mistake the turn that we did it. And then the turn afterwards, we absolutely knew it was a mistake. We knew that we were not going to have enough to defend this place. So I shouldn't have done it from the first place. Anyways, that is the battles for the turn. Very simple. Let's look at some unexpected events. We have an unexpected event in Scraw Point. The dead rise from the grave. Great. In Traban, the dead rise from the grave. I need this dead rise and stuff to not happen for much longer. Otherwise, it's going to end poorly for us. Fingers crossed. Then we have children disappearing in the night, some unrest and magic increase in Hesperia. We've got a priest has been blessing the crops throughout the province. People are happy. We got additional gold and some dominion in Talito. Very cool. Got province income and defense in Anglavania. That's pretty sweet. And then in Zaburia, to counter that, we got mass unrest and minus population. All balances out. Worldwide event has occurred. There's an upcoming arena match. We're not sending... This is the second arena. We're not sending anybody into the arena. In the future, we might send Buyas, but we're in the middle of a war. We need all the resources we can get, and sending it... This, you know, like... if you're in a 12-person game, sending a commander or a scout, maybe you'll get something, because maybe everyone else is too fucking busy to do the arena. But in a 74-person game, yeah, no, there's gonna be someone who sends something. And yeah. Then we have two battles. These are the Undead Battles. We'll watch them real quick. See how well our PD does for itself. Probably not going to be very well for Barbarians. And dead. Real easy. So we killed 10 of them. And then in Traban, we just took this back. Oh yeah, this has a single PD. So we're not even watching that. That's... We killed one soulless. Great. Fantastic. Patrolling troops in Northia. I wanted to go... Walden. Walden. We need to double check this. I think actually... So I'm trying to make a go for a direction. So basically we've got these Wuyas. We move too quickly with these. We need to be able to buff their magic resistance and etc. etc. This Wuya's probably dead. He's probably too far into end territory and is probably going to get caught. But if we, who knows, we might be able to send him in the right direction and not. Yeah, only problem is okay, so research wise we are going up thaumaturgy. We'll have Iron Will next turn, and that will be very good for us, but we're not there yet. So the only thing we have to add to the mix now is Earth Power. So Earth Power is great. We're gonna change out Prayer of Earth with Summon Earth Power. And that should be fun, honestly. If we run into Mages doing Soul Slay, he's probably dead. It's very likely. I would assume that he's... I don't know. He might split up his forces and start attacking in multiple different directions. But he's had some losses, and he's seen some of the things that I can do. So it's possible that he doesn't, right? And that's kind of what we're banking on. It's possible that he's like, I don't want to get caught out and lose forces, like be defeated in detail, that kind of concept. So he might just try to stay in a single blob. In which case, if he moves the whole blob to Traban, of course, you know, this guy's dead. But if he moves the whole blob, like he tries to go towards our cap or something like that, then that should be fine. I don't know what his plan is, and I don't really have a good concept for like guessing about his plan at this point. So I think we're just gonna cross our fingers and hope. We'll see how it goes. In the meantime, we are raiding further into Midria with Razul and his raptors. I have altered his scripting a little bit to hold. I think I'm actually going to pull that just a tad back. Hold a handful of times and then attack rear. So basically we want them to do the majority of the work, and hopefully if anything gets close to him, he'll finish up by flying up in the air, and we'll see. These guys are very frail, so if you're not like buffing them or using them in concert with other forces, they tend to just die after a couple of ED6 provinces, so whatever. Over here in Ablok, we have Wuya 8 that we are sending out. He's got a very small force. 6 Katsina, 13 Chaco and Elite Warriors, a bunch of archers. But he's going up against the Atlantean infantries, and I think honestly the Katsina are probably enough to do this. So we're just hitting them, and then we'll come back. Big deal. We're just trying to take Doman. Might as well. And then over here in Finnica, our god is going to jump all the way over to Scraw Point. Our god, we can't, we have to be very, very careful about our god being involved in a fight with individuals, especially for now, right? If we can get a lodestone on him, or if we can eventually get to like an amulet of resistance, of magic resistance, so that's a +4, then he will have pretty high base magic resistance, and then we can iron will him, and he'll have 30-ish magic resistance, and that's typically good enough to do basically whatever with. To the point to where I'm actually considering, I don't think I'm going to do it this turn, but I'm considering reaching out and trying to buy an amulet of magic resistance. Just to throw it on our god and have a good opportunity there. Otherwise, what else do we have? We're juggling troops in Zaburia, especially now that he has more troops in Ashenton. We've got to be very careful. He could just come at us over here in Zaburia. If he does, though, I feel like I might have his number, right? So if we talk about the concept of we got hit by this in Ashenton, right? If he were to send this at me, I might actually just attack him with... So Wuya 5 is heading over to Zaburia to kind of be the leader there. And so this is, for example, kind of what we're looking at with a Wuya scenario. He's got 26 magic resistance. And once we get Iron Will, we can pop that up to 30. It's possible, right? Anything in Dominions is possible, right? With exploding dice, but it's very unlikely at this point that without penetration gear, his Maguses or Sages will be able to penetrate 30 magic resistance. To the point to where if I start off a battle with 26 magic resistance, and because they have to communion first, right? So they spend the first turn communioning up. I spend the first turn doing Iron Will. So I'm sitting at 30 MR. Typically, that's a good luck kind of moment, right? And then from there, I can, bless, I can iron skin, etc. And I should be able to deal with the base troops. The real issue comes when potentially if it's just Abbot Sages, we're good. But the real issue comes when it's not, when it's someone like a Magus mixed in that can do something like Incinerate, right? So that becomes an issue, because if the AI is smart enough to swap over and start incinerating me, that's very unlikely that I'm going to be able to survive via regeneration and etc. it's a very interesting kind of like situation to be in, where we might have an answer where we can just throw someone in the mix and then it just not do anything to them. But I don't think we're quite there yet. Gotta figure that out more. We are also attacking into a Miradon with Mong 1. Mong 1 has a very simple setup. He actually can't do Summon Earth Power, so gonna have to sit on what he has. But he should be fine. He's got Protection 20. He's gonna have very high protection to deal with these undead come next turn. Everything else that we're doing is relatively normal. Continuing to summon more Muyas, getting more Katsinas. We're kind of storing up in Chaco, trying to build up a big army. We've got 134 units here and a fair number of mages. Holy shit. 134, 187. Yeah. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. That's a fair number. That still doesn't add up, though. I'm confused on how the math there works, but whatever. It's fine. In other places, more Star Priests, more Elite Warriors. We've got a couple of Hmong Katsinas that are going to pop next turn. One in Woven Plain, and then I think... Where was the other? Yeah, one in Zaburia, which will be good. Continuing to recruit Jade Maidens as additional Sacreds. And then the big thing this turn, right, is upon the completion of Conjuration 3, we are... spending mage turns summoning bears, which are sacred. And do I have a pop this over here? Trying to be better about doing this type of thing. You can actually see what I'm talking about with some of this stuff. So let me see. I have a shaman. Okay, yeah, well, maximize that. Oh, that's so weird. Why is... Alright, well, it's not a perfect situation, but whatever. So you can at least see what we're talking about. So we've got, we're doing some summon bears. These are the bears, right? 44 hit points, very high strength, so they hit really hard. They are sacred. So their attack skill is going to get boosted pretty high. It'll be 15, so they'll be very likely to hit, generally speaking. And then they'll all be tempered flesh, so they all take way less damage, and they will all have regeneration. So these guys are going to be pretty tough to deal with. Unfortunately, they are also very low magic resistance, so they'll be very easy soul slay targets, which is kind of rough. It's actually dangerous in a way, because it could turn into route fodder for us if we had a bunch of great bears and a contingent of mages all focused on the bears. They have so much HP that they could soul slay them easily because of the low magic resistance, and then all of that HP disappearing could turn into a route for the rest of the army. So we have to be kind of careful using them, but generally speaking, they're going to be very useful to us. They're not the greatest damage dealers, but they are going to hit relatively hard when they hit, with the 20 strength that they have. And they've, they're sacred, so they're not too bad for us. And the other big thing is, if we take a look at the spell, right, it's 8 gems for 7 bears, plus an additional bear for every 2 levels past the ritual requirement. And the ritual requirement only requires 1 nature, which means if something like a 3 nature Wuya is casting this, we get 8 bears for, you know, the price of 7. Which is fine. It's not like, oh, that's so amazing. But you gotta think, we get nature 4s pretty regularly with the Wuyas. If we like give one a Thistle Mace, that's 9 bears for the price of 7. So that's pretty decent. That anytime you get to the point to where you start producing a unit per gem point or per gem or more, it tends to be, especially if they're sacred, that tends to be pretty good. Now again, they're bears, animals, super low magic resistance, yada yada yada, etc. So not the, you know, we're not Nazca over here, but you know, whatever. It's decent. And this should give us some pretty good combat power. Just a handful of these casts, or casts of these over the course of the next few turns, could really turn things around for us with Ind, potentially. And then the other thing that we're doing is Ant Warriors. So, Ant Warriors is a very interesting spell. That's not that one. Summon Ant Warriors is a Conjuration 3 spell. And it takes 5 gems, and it gets you 8 Ant Warriors of 2 different variants. It requires a Earth and Nature to cast, and you can only cast it at the Sipapu, which is a location in our capital, right? So that's kind of unfortunate. We can only... These guys are pretty decent, but we can only get them at our capital. But they're basically... For the love of God, they are non-shitty infantry units for us to use, is basically what this boils down to. With both the Great Bear and the Ant Warriors, that's kind of what we're going for here, is just this scenario of, dear Lord Jesus, let it not be Chacoan Elite Warriors anymore, because those guys are like paper. Now, don't get me wrong, the Ant Warriors aren't, they're not the strongest things in the world, and they're not sacred, which is another unfortunate problem. But, you know, if they were sacred, they would be really, really, really cool. They have decent stats across the board. 14 strength, 12 attack, 13 defense on the shield variants, 8 defense on the spear variants. The long spear is actually quite long. It's length 4. So it does do pretty well at repelling. Decent HP, 16. Size 3. They're formation fighters, so they can actually fit 3 into a square instead of 2, which is pretty neat. And then they have decent protection. Protection 14. And they have multiple attacks, right? So each of them, you have the sword and shield variety, and then you have the long spear variety, but they also each have a bite, which is, it's not super strong or anything like that, but when you factor in the formation fighter, there's 3 of them to a square, there's 6 attacks per square, decent survivability. These guys are pretty okay. And you actually get 8 of them for 5 gems. So again, you go to that scenario of anytime you're summoning bodies equal to or more in the favor of, you know, more bodies than gem spending, that tends to be better, you know. Tends to be a bit better than a lot of the other summons. So this is what we're kind of like spending some of the time that we're on, or some focus on, and that's also why we're recruiting things like this Monkatsina over here in Woven Plain and over here in Zaburia, right? These are going to be either these are going to be Great Bear casters in places like Ablak and Zaburia, whereas we're basically probably going to have someone doing Ant Warriors in Chaco for the foreseeable future. What else are we doing? Last little thing that we're doing is some research. So we're gonna be completing Thaumaturgy 3 this turn, which is very important for us. That gets us Iron Will, being able to start up Iron Will on our Wuyas or on our god is going to be very, 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 very strong for us. Okay. The sooner we get to that point, the sooner we are going to be able to rely on our Wuyas to do things. We pulled the trigger way too soon on them. That is entirely my bad. Just getting antsy and jumping the gun on that. And it's going to cost us 2 Wuyas with gear, with important gear. Which is a silly mistake to do. But it is what it is. It happens. We're going to get some other things from Thaumaturgy, but nothing that we care about too terribly much at this point in time. Up next is going to be some enchantment. So we're going to finish Thaumaturgy this turn, and we'll probably make it halfway through enchantment 3 this turn. So we'll finish Enchantment 3 the following turn. Enchantment 3 it's okay, but it's not really a big deal for us. It does give us Strength of Giants, which is a nice buff. It does give us Astral Shield for our Star Priests, which is also a nice buff. It's going to give us Fire Shield for some of our people, which is cool. That's nice. Generally speaking, we don't really care about a lot of this type of stuff. Regeneration is whatever. I don't know about Kelp Hulks. That's maybe something I could look into. This can only be cast underwater. Never mind. Beast Tide Warriors is okay. It's kind of like a weird Wooden Warriors. A little like Halvesies Wooden Warriors. So this is somewhat useful for us, right? This is actually like a Halvesies Wooden Warriors. Is that what I said? Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Honestly, it kind of is what it is. So Beast Tide Warriors is somewhat useful for us because it does provide some natural protection buff and slash resistance, and most of In's units are using slashing attacks. So this is actually pretty decent for those for our infantries that aren't sacred already. The natural protection can be somewhat good with some of the units that we're using, like Chacoan Elite Warriors, gives them a little boost in protection. But it's not a lot. This isn't a super big deal. And the other problem with it is it's, once again, it's one of these nature earth combinations. And we don't have a lot of Monketsinas right now because Monketsinas are expensive. And so this is something that could be somewhat useful, but it's not going to be something that we get to use a whole lot of. So that just kind of is what it is. So, but generally speaking, Enchantment 3 is just a stepping stone to Enchantment 4, and there are a couple of bigger things. I say a couple of. It's really 2 things. No, there's 3 things. There's 3 things. I'm sorry. That are kind of like big about Enchantment 4 for us. The main one, I think, being anti-magic, right? So anti-magic is going to be a thing that we can put up with our communions. And being able to give the entire battlefield +4 to their magic resistance is going to be very, very important. Especially when you get the type of concept of, like, for example, our Great Bears, right? Coming into battle with Imar 8. Now, again, if we're fighting an R Dominion, we've got Drain Scales. That's going to get boosted up to Imar 9. And then with an anti-magic, that's a +4. And 13 isn't great, right? It's not great. But it can resist some things sometimes. It's at that point, at least there's a chance, versus 9 being almost a guarantee, right? So anti-magic is going to be very good for those types of scenarios. And then also just our regular troops. Most of our regular troops actually have pretty decent magic resistance to begin with. I want to say our Katsina are actually pretty okay. And this is just going to make them that much more resilient to that whole concept. I think that's going to be very important when dealing with End. It just is what it is. So second thing is flaming arrows. And this is a double-edged sword, but realistically, only our god is going to be able to cast this anytime soon. But if it comes down to a big battle in the next couple turns, a flaming arrows could be the thing to seal the deal. Now, we do have create flaming ammunition that we can use already on our... I don't understand how that... Where is that even? I'm curious now. Create flaming missiles. So this is a construction option, and then enchantment is the actual flaming arrows. That seems so weird. Why wouldn't it just be lower level enchantment gives you the smaller flaming arrow? Whatever, it doesn't matter. So like, yeah, we already have the create flaming arrows, but this takes several casts and it's not going to guarantee that everyone is going to be hitting or getting hit with the ability. Just being able to make sure that all of our projectiles on the battlefield are extra 8 AP fire damage is, generally speaking, going to be a good thing. This also gets us, going to Enchantment 4, gets us one step closer to Enchantment 5, which gets us Flame Ward, which is a way for us to protect ourselves against our own flaming arrows, and that will be important to get to eventually. I also think that enchantments... yeah, so enchantment is the Gaia's Blessing scenario. That's super late game, but it is something that is very, very in our purview to cast. So eventually, if we survive that long, that will probably be a thing that we're interested in. I'm just talking about random stuff now. The third thing that we are getting from Enchantment 4 is as far as I'm aware, this is just this is a DE spell, and that is Skill of Heroes. So it is a very short range cast, and it takes fire too, so this is not going to be something that we can typically make use of a whole lot, but what we can do is we can give a Chacoan Sun Priest a fire gem and give them the ability to cast this skill, but it gives a pretty decent section, a pretty decent area of effect of attack skill +4, right? And being able to use that is actually... I don't know what AP +4 is, unfortunately. I don't know... Like, it says move and... gain attack skill and move and fight more quickly. But I don't know what AP is. I don't know if that's, like, combat movements? But someone who knows, let me know. I will probably have figured it out by the time that this gets posted and someone responds to the comment, but I'm still interested to know, you know? But attack skill 4 is very strong, right? That's a very nice buff. As far as I'm aware, there's not really a way to get that as a buff otherwise. So being able to put that on a bunch of Katsina, super good. Maybe a bunch of Jade Maidens, super good, right? Being able to throw that onto... those dual-wielding hatchet guys that we have down south that we're getting some of here or there, right? They have they hit really hard, really scary, but they have shitty attack, right? Being able to buff them up, +4 attack, kind of scary, right? So I'm actually really interested in potentially making use of this skill. So, but it's definitely like the lowest on the totem pole. Anti-magic, definitely the highest. Flaming arrows, kind of an interesting thing depending on how things plan out. Skill of heroes, lower tier. But we also get some other things, but those are the interesting things that I'm worried about or interested in getting to in the near future. But see how it goes. So that's pretty much the turn. I've talked way longer than I need to on this. We found Satis's capital. Very cool. Middle Satis. Very cool. But other than that, nothing big happening. So that's going to be it for the turn. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.